Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Live. This is our series that delves into the products and trends grabbing the industry and in real time looking at the minds behind the design. For nearly 30 years, David Oki has been a leading voice within the design community, pushing the industry to be more mindful and more sustainable in its practices. But for David, he finds himself to be a student of Mother Nature herself, learning from her principles and ultimately creating designs from the endlessly renewable, continuously inspiring natural world around him. But he did not start out that way. So with me today to discuss his journey to sustainability and the launch of his latest biophilic collection for Interface, Granite Mountain, is David Oki, founder of David Oki Designs. Welcome, David. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction.
So David, let's just dive right in. So you have a long history with Interface, having worked with them as an exclusive designer for nearly 30 years now. But your career in carpet and textiles started even before that time. So how did you first find yourself working in the world of soft surfaces?
Oh, this is going to take a long time.
Well, okay, so give us the very abridged version.
Okay. I was born in England, even with this American accent now that I have. I was born in a small town called Kidderminster in the 60s. And back then, Kidderminster used to be the carpet capital of the world, making woven carpets, Axminster and Wilton carpets. There were probably 30 to 40 manufacturers in town. So I went to college and studied carpet design for 4 years. So in 4 years, I did kind of industrial practices in different countries from Denmark, Northern Ireland, north of England, all with carpet design is my career.
I think it can be really difficult for some people to believe, because I think really people nowadays equate sustainability and interface, and they go completely hand in hand. And that was through Ray Anderson of Interface. But you were actually skeptical of Ray Anderson and this mission that he's going on. What helped convince you to join Ray on a sustainability journey with Interface?
At that time, Ray was suddenly at this epiphany of sustainable design, and I thought it would kind of go away. But back then, you think about Interface, they were a global company taking everything from the earth, petroleum, nylon, and nylon was the worst embodied product. And back then, all the scientists said, we can't recycle it. So it was in 1997, I read a book called Biomimicry by Janine Benyus, and it just changed everything. And it was really that we weren't going to use nature for our building materials and our products. We're going to be like nature. So we have to take our synthetic ways and do it like nature does. We started off very simple, to stop using the worst amount of nylon we can. So we made minimal, low profile products, reducing, cutting out waste, and we suddenly got onto this bandwagon and we just kept growing and growing. And now, yes, the scientists know how to recycle nylon. So it was quite a journey.
I mean, we're certainly glad you've taken this journey, and it's been interesting to, obviously, I'm sure for you, to see the evolution of what it was 30 years ago to now. And I know that you've accepted it, like this new path to sustainability and the importance of biophilic design. And it just so happens that you've incorporated in the space behind you, which is your own space, Pond Studios. So would you say your studio that you're sitting in today was a test lab for some of these like newfound ideas about biophilic design, which you learned about during this journey and continue to sort of be a test lab even today?
Yeah, it was very challenging because our decision to build the studio was right when we started working with Interface, and right at that time that I was kind of pessimistic believer in this. But I knew that if we were going to stay with Interface, we had to kind of think about a sustainable a studio. And I had a friend of mine, Elva Rubio. I asked if she would design our studio, which she did. And actually she gave up her job and started working on this project. But she was the one who really pioneered this. And she was way ahead of, I think, a lot of the designers then of building a sustainable building. For me, it was really a learning curve. And I went through some pretty tough things as well. If you really don't need it, don't put it in. I mean, there were ceiling tiles. We have raw, unfinished roof, and I wanted to kind of make it all, uniform and covered and very, human-like. And she was saying, just let it be. If you don't need it, don't put it in. So it was a pretty interesting journey for me. And it has paid off for us. It's a place that we still love to be in, and we are connected with nature here.
Mm-hmm. And it's obviously what you implemented in the Design Upon Studios back then is what the general community is now embracing now. It almost feels like it just took that long for the rest of the community to sort of catch up a little bit.
Yeah, it's, I think it's like you think about it, nature has evolved over millions of years, and we've been here actually for a pretty short period of time on Earth, but we want to change so fast. Sometimes it does take time for things to happen. But I look back now, even just 20 years, I'm amazed of how far we've come. And then all the other industries and the fashion industry, you just see it growing now. It's just unbelievable. So
while Granite Mountain, of course, is your latest biophilic collection, you actually began exploring how to recreate biodiversity on the floor 20 years ago with the launch of Entropy Carpet Tile. So what guided you to your initial design for Entropy?
Really, that came from when I read the book Biomimicry by Janine Benyus. Again, that changed me completely. And I was saying, okay, we have to get Janine here. We have to, start to embrace this. So we had a workshop that we had, was pretty much one of the first biomimicry workshops. And it was, Janine was talking about how would nature design a carpet tile? And she starts that off with everybody. How would nature make a chair, make an automobile? That's how she questions it. So she took our designers outdoors, and it was kind of strange for us, to go out and say, okay, what are we going to learn? Yes, we can make something like a leaf or a rock, but it was a fundamental thing of looking at nature. And one of the biggest things we started to see the difference between what we were doing and how nature operates. We were making what we call uniformity, monolithic product. That means every carpet tile had to look like the other carpet tile. If it didn't match up perfect, it was kind of rejected and thrown away because we were looking for this uniformity. It's a very human thing. Mm-hmm. So when we looked at nature, whether it was bark, leaves, stones on the floor, the one fundamental thing is diversity. And nature thrives on diversity. And we said, well, let's try and make a product that each carpet tile comes out slightly different in color and design. It was a huge step that we took back then, that suddenly all these tiles would come out of the box and they would not match the same. But it was a big change for us. We laid out the tiles. We could actually install them randomly. We could take different die lots from our suppliers. We wouldn't waste as much material. That the installers could easily install it with less waste. All the things came along that we didn't think about when we took this approach. So Entropy was this huge success, and we brought out 2 or 3 other products with that same design. One still is one of our top sellers, and it's still there. And it's a very practical kind of solution for modular flooring on a floor where you can actually replace, put one back down, and it doesn't, stand out from all the other ones. So that was a huge change to kind of just put your trust in nature.
Well, it's interesting because I would like to say that like biomimicry and biophilia, which you were incorporating 20 plus years ago, it's like now almost a common word, in the design vocabulary. But I think it wasn't when you first really started utilizing it as the inspiration for Entropy and further collections. I want to speak more about Granite Mountain, which is your latest collection, your latest biophilic collection. And, it's very much a product of the pandemic, when we were all isolated at home, restricted from travel, and without many sources of inspiration. But you somehow went out there, not very far from your home though, and were able to capture inspiration for this collection. So tell us a little bit more about sort of your path to find this Granite Mountain.
Yeah, our designs in the last, probably 10, 15 years have always we go back to nature. Like for every other collection, we kind of go back. And what happened with the lockdown for us was we were walking in our neighborhood walks. We would walk a lot. And I think we were doing sometimes like 7-10 miles a day, but was the same kind of walks. And it was meeting my son and his fiance. They said, "Have you been to Arabia Mountain?" And we said, "No." And one weekend, we took a drive 20 minutes out of Atlanta, and we found this kind of Granite Mountain that used to be kind of a quarry for granite. So we got there, and it was suddenly this inspirational visual of man and nature together, of this abandoned quarry. So, and you start to also see where nature is kind of reclaiming its place in that area. But we saw right angles and squares, and that's one of the things that we struggle with in carpet tile, because we are working with square rectangles. Now, when you really study biophilic design in nature, you can find rectangles, squares, 90-degree angles. You might find a few crystals, but everything in nature is organic. And if you want to build something strong, you build organically. Like the airplane you fly in, the windows, the doors are all curved for strength, the fuselage. So when we want to design for strength, and I see the shift even in architecture and design, that we are moving more organically in design. But the fundamental thing as far as aesthetics, to try and make organic shape in inside and interior with squares and rectangles, it's very difficult. So we start to see where nature and man had come together, and all these colors and patterns. It was just really an amazing, inspirational visit.
So let's kind of dive into some of these patterns so that you were able to capture in Granite Mountain. So I know there's 8 altogether, correct? So let's start, give us a little sort of insider look at Rock Springs, Mantle Rock, and Rockland Road.
Okay. Well, first, the collection, the inspiration for the collection on the mountain is diversity. You'll see big areas of plain granite. You'll see kind of interesting little oases of, they're called solution pits, where flowers are growing. And it's the diversity of the colors and design, which were also the inspiration. So the collection starts off with Rock Springs, I think Mantle Rock, and Rockland Road, I think. Those are the very subtle kind of, I would call, getting close to monolithic, but they have these very subtle tidal gray, which is the name of the granite from Arabia Mountain. So you have these beautiful granite patterns that we were capturing. The first three are kind of more kind of the basic kind of elements that you would probably use in a wide area in an interior.
And then, so there's three more patterns. So flat rock, mountain rock, and Ridge Creek. And so what is the sort of style and aesthetic?
Okay, those three are the most biophilic part of the collection because they're transitional products. There are three designs that look so organic that when you put them on the floor, you can actually see movement. And also those three are made on our latest technology of tufting that really can do anything you want. It can make intricate pattern, it can make very low profile texture. And these three go from a very low dense profile to this beautiful diverse texture that keeps changing throughout a space. That one is kind of the most biophilic of the group.
And then, so the last two patterns, how did these work in for Mile Rock and Panola Mountain?
Okay, Mile Rock was actually, we saw a lot of like broken fragments of rock where they'd broken up and it was just like shattered on the floor. And so that was the inspiration. And also we started to see kind of this luster in the rock. It was kind of like a, I don't know, just shiny. So we wanted to capture that broken, shattered look. And we used a metallic yarn to kind of highlight that luster. So Mile Rock is kind of that kind of very unique metallic and broken rock. Panola is our kind of inspiration from these, again, solution pits. They're kind of indentations on the rock where it captures rainwater. And in that rainwater, foliage grows throughout the year. In the fall, you have these beautiful yellow daylilies. And as you go into the spring, you get this diamorpha, which is like a pink red, and the mountain kind of turns this pink red. You have to look it up and see these. It's really only in Arabia Mountain, but they look like little oases. And they are for probably birds to get water and grass to grow. And they reminded me so much of like little meeting points and area rugs within a space. And that's what we start to see in our interiors now. Go back to the 80s, our carpet tile was one same carpet all the way through a building. Now we usually have sometimes 20, 30, 40 different products on one project. And the inspiration for Panola, that's where really those little beautiful area rugs came from, like oasis.
Well, no, of course, because I feel like nowadays, I feel like you were saying before, like it used to be monolithic, like everything was the same. And now it's like you have so many different intimate spaces and wayfinding, and you do have to design with like how an interior designer will ultimately create spaces and using flooring as a way to do that. But, you know, you kind of touched on it, obviously, with Panola and some of the others, but like, obviously this use of a more natural color palette has been growing strength over the last 10 years. And you seem to continue that with Granite Mountain. So what was the development process like when thinking about the color palette for this collection?
Well, the color palette, we tried to be as true to the colors, and we actually took samples there to get, and really when you start to look at these intricate grays, and they go from cool to warm, and there's a mixture of gray. That was really very important. And then the importance to have color to be used in small spaces. And again, I would have to go back to the product. And I love even taking mixtures of those and putting them together. Because when you, in nature, if you see a petal on a flower, it's not one solid color. It's probably thousands of that hue in that shape. And we suddenly struggle, to get color and design even close to nature. So diversity of color and pattern, very important in the design process of this collection.
So while we've been focused on the commercial side of the collection, there is a companion to Granite Mountain that one can specify from the Interface consumer brand, Floor, which I know you can use for both the commercial market and use at home. So what is your design approach to Floor as compared to Interface products? And really, how do you integrate your designs for both?
That's a great question, because it's actually getting to a challenge for us right now, because we started off Floor as being really designed for the residential market. Then we start to see more and more of our commercial customers starting to want to use the product. Now, the product is really made from the same yarn system, our 100% recycled content on the same machines, and the products really have the same performance as our commercial. It's really color and design separates the direction. But we've had so much success with the Floor. Now we're starting to figure out, okay, is it residential we want to go, or do we want to lean to the commercial? But more residential looks and colors are being used now in commercial spaces, as you know. And so it is a very important part of our collection now. And you'll see more and more products that have coordination, connection to both the commercial and residential. It's actually a very exciting product collection for us to design for.
So for both Interface and Floor, sustainability, so if we go back to sort of our beginning of our conversation, of course, continues to be a part of the DNA of all of their products. And of course, Granite Mountain is no different. So how does this collection really carry on the tradition of sustainability first established by Ray Anderson and incorporate some of the more recent initiatives set by the company?
Well, some of the new initiatives are some of the backing options, which we don't get involved with. That's the technical part that holds that product together and goes on the floor. They've made a lot more progress and moving to carbon neutral, carbon negative in those backing options. The most connected we are is through the yarn. Working with, definitely with Aquafil, who've made unbelievable strides. Interface cannot be sustainable on its own. It has to have suppliers to make the product and people to specify the product. We're kind of all in this together.
Well, I think it takes a village, is what we've all learned, but also yes. I think, it's all about great collaboration, whether it's great collaboration with your relationship with Interface or Aquafil. We all have learned as an industry that we all have to work together to kind of move us forward and obviously help the planet as much as we can. But with that, I really would love to thank you so much for your time and really your insight into this journey that you took to sustainability and your collaboration and longstanding partnership with Interface. And of course, to our amazing audience out there, please make sure to check out the Interface website to learn more about Granite Mountain and their many other collections from David Oakey. Thank you.
vision for the building has been something that I have envisioned for a long time. This is a dream come true.
The building is a brand statement for Davis Furniture. It shows where we've come and where we have the possibility to go in the future.
I look around and I walk through the spaces and I'm like, ooh, I think a new product's gonna look really nice in that space.
It feels like it's home. It feels like it's someplace that I'm comfortable in, and I want to come to work here and I want to be a part of that.
Finally came to a point where we were totally out of space. We had no conference rooms left. Our growth had taken us to a point where we had people sitting on top of people, and it was just not the right environment. That's when we got involved with Bob Bazemore, a local architect, and Brian, my son, actually ran this project from start to finish. And we set them off on a task to design a state-of-the-art facility that gave us the potential to focus on our products and also focus on our employees in this facility.
We wanted to make an inviting workplace so that we can really showcase our furniture in an office environment.
Rob Easton and I have a 20-year history together. We talk about space, feel, and interaction. We developed that into a different language of at home in the office. It was a real easy fit, and being able to understand how their products worked into these environments.
We created a lot of different spaces. You know, Bob and I really talked about that actually a lot. You know, these touchdown areas and these meeting spaces. We came from a building that we literally ran out of meeting spaces.
Working with Bob and Rob for the last maybe 15 years on our showrooms, they really understood what we needed for office space. And then in the design process, we met with employees, talked about what their needs were and what they wanted to accomplish.
The new building really is a beautiful piece of architecture, but it's also a showroom for our products.
You're really trying to create a blank canvas that allows Davis to integrate their furniture and what they're doing with their philosophy into this blank canvas. Now we integrate people into that, and people have to work in that office and they have to interact in that office. So it changes the dynamic a lot.
I think for a designer, it really showcases the amount of products we can provide to them, from office space to collaborative meeting to conference areas and even cafe.
It's really different when you physically see that and you physically experience. And that's one of the things that we've done here is we've created environments that designers will see these for the first time in actual use in actual spaces.
This facility is 15,000 square feet of office space, but it's also 35,000 square feet of state-of-the-art manufacturing space.
When Danny announced that he was going to build a new corporate headquarters and also mentioned that there would be some manufacturing connected to that space, it made total sense to me.
Anybody who's in the office space can look down into that manufacturing floor and go, that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. And the same thing with the guys on the manufacturing floor. They can come up here and go, oh wow, that's a really cool way we're using that chair. I understand that. I upholstered that.
It's nice to be able to look out there and see our furniture being made. I walk by it at least 10 times a day. I really feel like the architecture and the combination of the beautiful Davis products brought together is telling a story about our brand that has never been told before.
It's a very modern building, and I think that showcases our furniture very well.
Now we have more collaborative spaces, and we have abilities to do a lot more collaboration within our environment, where before we just didn't have that room and didn't have that luxury. And we were selling the products, but we weren't walking the walk, so now we're walking the walk.